A fight for answers and possibly closure in the storied case of the West Memphis Three. Over the past year, attorneys have been pushing for a chance to retest crucial evidence that could shine new light on what happened nearly 30 years ago. THV 11's Mercedes McKay shows us what's stopping this from moving forward.
The three men accused of killing 3 young boys in West Memphis, Arkansas, may finally get a second chance to argue their innocence. Now that innocence all starts with evidence found here at the crime scene nearly 30 years ago, where attorneys say new DNA testing could finally reveal the truth.
We've been having this battle forever with the state on trying to discover the truth who committed these murders, and they still fight us.
It's a fight Jason Baldwin and 2 other men have been battling for most of their lives, accused of killing 3 young boys in West Memphis, Arkansas. On May 5, 1993, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers all disappeared, last seen riding their bikes together. One day later, their bodies were found in a drainage ditch.
There's such a history of wrong from the beginning, from the very first day of this investigation.
The lack of evidence, like no DNA testing done on items found at the crime scene, caught journalist Mara Leverett's attention. It was that same lack of evidence that put Baldwin in handcuffs for a crime he says he didn't commit.
We get to trial, and I think they're going to talk about the evidence, but the whole talk from the state is that there was no evidence, that the crime scene was completely cleaned up, that there was a total lack of physical evidence, and that was evidence of Satanism.
Even though no DNA evidence ever proved it, the 3 were charged, accused, and convicted of the murders back in 1994. That's when the name West Memphis Three began to attract international attention.
Everybody involved in that, basically, it helped their careers to win that case. And it really was at the expense of other people's lives.
After spending nearly 20 years in prison, the men would walk free on an Alford plea in 2011, which allowed them to maintain their innocence despite a guilty plea. To this day, that still stings for Baldwin.
The hardest part was taking the Alford plea, knowing that the state was not going to pursue justice and not going to pursue who killed the kids.
Fast forward a decade, the West Memphis Three are still fighting the state for answers. After months of asking the prosecuting attorney and the West Memphis Police Department for the evidence in the case, like the victim's shoes, socks, and shoelaces, Eccles' legal team finally got their hands on some in December of last year.
There's no doubt in my mind, law enforcement, that city attorney, everyone was in there, and there's not any one of them who didn't want to find out the truth either.
Defense attorney Patrick Banka believes the way they'll find that truth is through new DNA testing that wasn't around 10 years ago. It's a process known as MVAC testing that uses a vacuum procedure to remove DNA right on evidence.
What it will do is it'll allow us to actually go inside the threading and the knots of the ligatures that were found on these young boys.
Those shoelaces used to tie up the children is the main piece of evidence the defense wants to test, and they're confident it will reveal the true criminals.
Whoever put the knots in those ligatures, despite the fact that they were in water for 24 hours, gives us a good shot at getting the DNA and the people who are directly responsible for these crimes.
But getting the chance to test that evidence hasn't been easy, with prosecutor Keith Cressman continuing to deny it. Banka says that's why they're going to court in June, leaving the decision up to a judge.
That's what we have to establish at this hearing, is it generally accepted by the scientific community? And if so, the court should grant us the ability to do further testing.
If that's granted, the defense believes the West Memphis Three could finally prove their innocence. But even if the DNA test does clear them, the path to legally clearing their names isn't a done deal since the 3 men took the Alford plea. Banka says they have a couple of options, like filing an actual innocence claim, which would ask the courts to set the convictions aside or allow the state to admit they got it wrong.
The option of the state of Arkansas saying, hey, look, mistakes were made, and we're sorry to these 3 men.
Even if they finally prove their innocence, nothing can give Miss Kelly, Eccles, or Baldwin the time back that they lost inside a jail cell.
I don't see it as 11 years free. I see it as 30 years of not being free, of having this wrongful conviction on my shoulders.
Mercedes McKay, THV 11 News.
Eccles' defense team is confident that if they can test this evidence, they'll win the case. The hearing is set for Thursday, June 23rd at the Crittenden County District Court. Stay with THV 11 for complete coverage.